Hello, bienvenue, wherever you are in the world, settle down, it's time for ultimate virtual qualifying for the French Grand Prix at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and this should be an absolute banger. We're really looking forward to this one here today. All the drivers just off the out of the pit lane trying to start their first laps here. This should be really entertaining. It was a great race last season. There's no sprint this time around, so this qualifying will set the grid for the main event of the day. And last season there was a sprint, however, as we just see the drivers coming across the line to finish off their first lap times. Woof! That is punchy. Apple Amazing with a 32.78. Of course, that is just the outlap from the pits, but that is the cars at their very freshest. No long-term damage caused just yet. No ghosting through others, putting them off their lines just yet. They're going for that. Their first proper push, I think, is now. But last season there was a sprint, and he won it, and he looked a shoo-in for the race win last season, if it weren't for a mechanical issue that cost him so much time. As we see Apple Amazing go even faster, and Sobel beats that. Sobel up to provisional pole position. It's a 32.07 for the Dutchman, who's currently looking to share the front row with the Belarusian Apple Amazing, who's still very respectable lap time of 32.12, and Goose behind them. They've still got a long way to go there. They might go for a couple in laps now just to let the tyres sort of cool down, let the fuel loads burn off, and just get into the groove a bit more of driving around the track. And, you know, oh, Ikolowski's in straight away. That's interesting. He's going to go a lap earlier than everybody else, as is, this is interesting, split strategy. Rito, Andres, Fox, Andrian, Pappy, Vladnator, Meneka, Pit Crew, and Caddo. I believe that is 9 drivers coming into the lane. That is, well, pretty incredible, actually. And you can see Ikolowski, who, you know, came out of the pit lane. He's still very nicely up in 5th in terms of track running, and he's got a lot of clean air ahead of him. So this is now his outlap. Yeah, going back to the sprint, so it looked like Antti was going to absolutely be a shoo-in for the race victory, and then a huge mechanical issue sent him from 1st down to 7th place, albeit he did finish, get 6 points, but he was a long old way off that pole position. Ikolowski improves, no he doesn't, that's a lie, it was a long way off pole position, off the race win in the end, 48 seconds, but in the race itself, Jake Brad won with just 2 tokens, and Eurus became historically the first driver to ever get on the, as it was then, Sunday League virtual podium with no tokens spent. But let's not talk about tokens at the moment. Let's have a look at the cars. It's really interesting to see the upgrades that we got this week, but hang on, we'll just see them after we get some fast laps in. Ikolowski goes up to 3rd position. Any other jumpers up the board? Looks like Rito went up to 6th place there. And we'll have a look if there's any more shaking up of the results. I think Vladnator and Meneka both jumped up. Was it Pit Crew perhaps putting himself higher up as well? Difficult to tell. But yes, so upgrades for this week. BAV finally got that speed upgrade that they've been working towards since Sepang, well, since Adelaide really. And that put them higher for sure, but not quite into the realms of BFX, who got a double grip upgrade. We're just going to look behind now. Goose goes on to provisional pole position. That is a really impressive lap from the Canadian, who finished much lower than he would have liked to last time around in the Monaco Grand Prix. Doesn't look like we've had too many other storming laps. Andrian's in once again. Look at that. That's really incredible to see. But Andrian, in his Fuerza is in 9th position, and I think that is purely the early stops, just getting in fast lap times before anybody else can afford to. And the run plans are fascinating here. I'm not going to have time to go through my normal jargon, because this is really interesting. Goose is now coming into the pit lane. Will he get time left to put in a fast lap? I mean, almost certainly yes, but this is going to be really interesting. So looking at the cars in terms of track position order, can't do it in terms of fastest lap order, but Sobel is on his in-lap, has to be his in-lap now, and he will then go into the pit lane and go around one more time to start one final flying lap, unless he doesn't come in for a final set of tyres. That is a possibility. No, he will. He will. Grandy won't. Urist will. And surely Suicide... No, Suicide won't. Ikolowski. This has to be a good... No, it's his outlap currently. Sobel going out for a very last minute outlap. Anybody else come into the pit lane? Not necessarily, no. Doesn't look like it. Okay. So we should be coming right towards the end of the run plans here. And Grandy has that track position, but obviously he's not going to get a final lap time in. Whether he is competing at the top we're not quite sure yet, but he's currently only got a time that's good enough for 4th. Pretty decent still. This is it. Ikolowski on his push lap, trying to, if he can, set that leaderboard aligned. His first lap time was a 32.38. He can't improve, nor can Sobel, because that was only an out lap for him. Rito does improve, and he takes 3rd position. Andries does improve. He's up to 8th. Suicide can't. Then we've got further down. Can Vladinator try and prompt himself up a little higher? Doesn't look like he'll be able to. And no, that looks like it will be it, because Grandy took the flag. That's going to be it for those runners, and that is all we have time for in qualifying. These are the results. Goose takes pole position here in Le Castellet, the Canadian man who apparently doesn't speak a lick of French, but seems to live in with the culture. He's going to try and convert that pole position into the race win. He was the only driver to dip below the 32-second margin. It was Sobel and then Rito in 2nd and 3rd for BFX, and Apple Amazing takes a very solid 4th position for Porsche. Then we've got Grandy and Ikolowski ahead of Urist and Andries, Suicide and Andrian in the top 10 for Fuerza Roja in qualifying. I believe that is the 2nd race running that has happened. Yeah, that sounds about right. Vladinator will take 11th position ahead of Pappy in 12th, and it's Pit Crew and Kubo with yet another very disappointing qualifying 14th only for him. Fox takes 15th, and we have to remember with Kubo that last race he qualified 12th and won the Monaco Grand Prix. That was Menica and Caddo, Abva, then Anti and Girouni, the entire field in a FVR sandwich from 1st to 20th. Now, finally we get a chance to look at the upgrades. I'm going to run through them very quickly since we've already sort of had a gander at them, but it is BAV with a speed upgrade. That's plus 0.6 to their index score, but that is not quite enough to catch BFX, who get plus 0.4 because they got 2 grip upgrades, taking up to 8 grip. They now have the best or tied best level in every single stat, and that is something pretty incredible to see. Then we also got Velocity, didn't get their acceleration this time. Porsche got an acceleration upgrade. Then we also had FVR with a speed upgrade and an acceleration upgrade. THX got a double grip upgrade, just like BFX did. And SFR working towards speed again, but no avail this week. Then Fuerza Roja double 100 rolls because of those bonuses, even though they did end up wasting something like 32. They did get a speed upgrade, and they got a triple turbo upgrade. If you look at the overall, the index stat in the right-hand column of the top graphic on your screen, they're up to 4.7. That's the closest they've ever been to the midfield, and that is a really, really big shift. All they need is maybe another speed upgrade and a bit more acceleration. They have a midfield car for the first time in their tenure in Ultimate Virtual, and despite the fact that you can see in the top left they've got 0 points, the only team pointless so far this season, they have a lot of tokens left to spend, and hopefully they're going to put them to good use. Here are the tokens to be spent for this race. Ikolowski is spending 4 tokens, but disaster for him. He's only in 6th position and he'll have to try and climb his way back up. The BFXs with a very strong showing in qualifying, 2 tokens each, and 2nd and 3rd for them, back to their Season 2 era in terms of the sheer power that team can carry. Urist with 3 tokens, only starting 7th on the grid. Apple Amazing with 1 token starts 4th. Maybe you could say that Porsche have a good qualifying car, but might fall back in the race, especially with those around him spending tokens, because Grandy, who starts behind him in 5th, is spending 3 tokens, and Fox is spending 2. Fox failed to qualify inside the top 10. Goose spending 2 tokens, got pole position, so that's interesting to see, but Fox is down in 15th place. That is really not where you want to be starting from if you're looking to get a podium in a car that is not very good. Then finally, Suicide spent 4 tokens, and the Pappy Pops racer will be starting in 9th place. He is the home man today, alongside, of course, Caddo, but Caddo starting down in 17th, didn't spend any tokens today. That is all that we're going to look at. It is now time for some racing at the Circuit Paul Ricard, and I hope you're ready for it. Here we go then, Goose on pole position. And we're underway at Le Castellet. This is going to be really interesting to see because Goose has started on the soft compound tyre and the cars behind. The BFX is starting on the hard and the medium compound. Apple Amazing looking to make a move up from into third place rather, from 4th on the grid already. And then it's pretty much Linus Stone. Suicide looking to make a move in the background on Urus. EK gets a bad exit. Urus and Sue will both boost past. Less chaos at the start thanks to the regenerative boost that we now have. But Apple Amazing all the while has really had a good second sector there, and he's made his way up to 2nd position. He's right on the tail of the Goose, who's looking to fly away in the lead of the race currently. Can he try and make a move? Grandy also with a really good start. It looks like the drivers who've spent good tokens here. Grandy has, Eurus has as well, and he's looking to get past Rito. He will. Can he get past Sobel, the BFX teammate? It will just open up for him. Through scene they go, and Eurus will take 4th position. The BFXers from the starting grid, each down 3 positions, and they're not done yet because Suicide looking for a move into the penultimate corner. Can he try a very tight final corner move? Not going to manage it this time. Pit Crew without tokens is up to 8th position already. We're having a look now at the lead of the race. It's still Goose, followed by Apley and Grandy. Eurus looking for a move here, and he'll get it done on Grandy. Can he try and catch Apley now as they come through the chicane? On the exit, he's got so much speed in that Team Velocity car, and he's made his way up 5 positions in under 3 laps, and he's going for the lead. He's not going to stop. He's going to keep trying. And he might just get Goose if he can use his turbo well down the main straight here. This should be really interesting to see if he can get him. Coming through the first sector, it's looking a little shaky there. Goose gets a sort of wide exit. Eurus keeps it nice and neat to the curb. Into the chicane, down the back straight. Eurus moves himself into the lead of the French Grand Prix. Goose might not be done with him just yet though. We'll have to see if the Canadian can manage to salvage a response, but after Team Velocity won last race, they are looking to put in back-to-back victories for the first time, really, in their tenure in Sunday League or Ultimate Virtual. You'd have to look back a very long way to see them win back-to-back races previously. Grandy, meanwhile, moves his way past Amazing, who sinks back down to 4th position. It's Suicide, and the BFX is still fighting. The field just starting to spread out a little bit because it's now Pit Crew and Ekolowski, 8th and 9th, and EK. Those hards have not done him any favours for the race start, and he really probably should have gone for a softer tyre because using those tokens, you just can't risk. You can't risk just getting bogged down in the mid-pack and having that affect your pace later on. Goose has a poor exit. The soft's already going off on lap 5 here, but he will still fight it into turn 1, and he will still keep the position. That is really great defensive driving, but he immediately gets all out of shape coming into the final chicane at sector 1, but he does get Grandy back down the main straight, uses that boost, and uses it for even longer. He nearly looked to catch up with Eurus there, but he's just carrying too much overspeed and not enough grip to go with it. Goose still in 2nd place for the moment. Suicide in 4th place. He's gotten past Amazing now, who sinks down to 5th place. Then it's Rito and Sobel, the BFXs, now each down 4 positions from their respective grid slot. Ekolowski has cleared Pit Crew. He's 8th. Andres, his teammate, in 10th, and Pit Crew splits them in 9th. Kubo looked to nearly shove Pappy into the lane there. Pappy has to somewhat dangerously rejoin the track. That definitely lost him time and position behind Hetmenica. Back up in the lead of the race. It's a huge fight, and Suicide for a second looked to have the race lead there. Rito's come back out of nowhere, and Eurus has lost position. He's on the soft compound tyre. Looks like Goose has already come into the lane, is that right? Yes, he must have done, because he's in 8th position with a pit stop to his name. Eurus is now in, and that was a huge battle that we just saw going on for the fight, for the lead of the race. Suicide putting pressure on Rito now. Rito's really come back into it well on those medium compound tyres, and Amazing there too. Ekolowski, the hards paying benefit for him now. He's in 4th position. It's only Eurus and Goose into the pit so far. He's going to get round the outside of Suicide on the exit of the chicane. That is a really great overtake from the Costa Rican in the British Aerial Virtual. That's a fantastic move. Rito currently leads the Grand Prix after losing 4 positions off the start. He's gained them all back on that medium compound tyre, but he's going to be undercut perhaps by Amazing, who in turn is undercut by the likes of Goose and Eurus, and Andres will also go through on his hard compound tyres. Meanwhile, the fight for 2nd place, Ekolowski right behind Rito. Look at Rito's mediums, they're starting to wear off, and EK's hards, just a little bit better condition for him. Grandy leads the race on his hard compound tyre. Suicide under pressure from Sobel coming down into the sweeping corners at the bottom right hand side of the circuit, and it's not going to be any movement. I think Suicide will be into the pit lane. No, not this lap. Interesting. Rito does come in though from the lead. Sobel and Suicide still battle down the straight, and Suicide looked really good for a minute there, but it looks like Goose, who did stop already, has caught back up to these guys. So it's difficult to establish what the actual order is, but Goose has been repassed by Eurus. Not a surprise, Eurus is on the soft compound tie. He's looking to get maybe a double move through Scene on Sobel. He does get the overtake done there. It's going to be Suicide up next on the hit list. Can Eurus just manage to move into the penultimate corner? They go through the sweeping bend, and Suicide is not going to make that too difficult for him. The Frenchman at his home Grand Prix comes into the pit lane now. Take a breath. Lots of action to start off the French Grand Prix here in Ultimate Virtual, but Grandy is leading the way. Pulling back up the tokens just for a second. Grandy is using 3 tokens, remember. Eurus in second place, also using 3 tokens. Goose using 2, Sobel using 2, Rito using 2, Aptly using 1. Then also to keep your eye on, EK using 4, and Fox using 2 as well. And Suicide using 4, of course. Floodnator in last place is the first car to be lapped, or may just be, as Eurus comes through, and he now takes the lead of the Grand Prix. It's an interesting strategy that he's gone on the softs just to try and break clear of Goose, and he is, for the time being, doing that, but there is a big old difference between those tyres, and he does quite easily just coast past the back marker there. And then it's Grandy in third place. He's just come out on the softs, so those are a lot better conditions than Eurus, and he's actually not that far behind. It's looking pretty good for the Flying Finn in third. Rito and Sobel fourth and fifth currently. Rito on pretty decent condition hards, and Sobel, I think, is just coming in for the first time on lap 12. So that's quite slow for him. The BFXs had huge pit stop issues here last season. Remember that. They weren't allowed to come in for the final stop because the wheel guns, the electric wheel guns, had broken following the penultimate pit stop for one of the cars, or what should have been the penultimate pit stop, and they were put onto the soft compound tyres with 16 laps to go, and were told that they wouldn't get fresh tyres if they did come into the pit lane. They were told to stay out, and Grandy makes a really nice move past Eurus into first position, into the first corner, and that is fantastic racecraft from the Thunder X driver. The drivers were told that they couldn't be serviced with new tyres if they came into the pit lanes. They were told to stay out, and they lost 30 seconds of race time. They were 9 seconds per lap slower come the end of the race, and that meant that Rito, from podium and race win fighting, went down to 6th position. Sobel fell out of the points. They're going to hope for slightly better pit procedures here today. It looks like coming into the pit lane already is Eurus. Grandy with a fastest lap there, or his PB currently. Then it's Goose in second place at the moment. He's on those medium worn hard compound tyres, and Rito behind is on the fresher hards. It swung back in the favour of the BFX driver despite Goose's pole position and early lead. And don't count out anyone from this just yet, because the entire top 8 are looking very, very racy. Grandy still leads the way. Goose and Rito still fighting behind. We'll follow on board with this just for the while, because I think Rito should be catching Goose, but Goose gets a really nice exit out of the final corner. Rito doesn't, and that allows Goose just to try and breeze down that straight and gain a few tenths of a second. Rito coming up through the top left-hand corner, hairpin up to the back straight. He's not got the straight line speed over Goose for the time being, which is surprising in the BFX, but they are not just a one-trick pony in terms of speed anymore. They really do have the best car in all departments, and that is pretty much a historic first in Ultimate Virtual. You'd have to look back to Season 1 to see a team have the best or tied best statistic for every single stat on the car. Interesting to see there. Rito followed by Eurus, who is on very fresh soft compound tyres. Well, he's in a few laps on them now, but he has come in for a second time, as has Applamazing just come in as well. He emerges out in 9th position, pretty clear of Pit Crew, who's now in 10th place, as Kubo comes into the lane. Andrian, interestingly enough, fighting around the points despite not really having a car that, well, not spending any tokens today for sure. He was supposed to be spending one, I believe, but they did change his plan last minute. Grandy now sliding around on the softs. Rito and Eurus look like they might come to blows here if Eurus can get a good exit down the straight. Look at the straight line speed on those soft compound tyres. By the time they reach the chicane, Eurus pulls into the second place position. Rito might try to come back at him. It's going to be difficult. He has to get through on Fox, who is in 14th position, spending 2 tokens. That is nearing unbelievable, but if you get stuck down there, it's very hard to come back up through the order, and that is something that he might be experiencing at the moment. That is not a fast car that he's in currently. Grandy is into the lane. Where will he come out in terms of position? It is going to be third place. Looks like Goose, who did pit a lap earlier, will have difficulty undercutting him on that hard compound tyre. He will need Grandy to take an extra pit stop, which he will be on course to do relative to Goose. Sobel tried to keep on Goose's tail, so to speak, hanging off his feathers. On much older hards. Suicide looking good on the mediums, but that Pappy Pops car still not one of the faster ones on the grid. Ikoloski in 7th place currently on fresh mediums, spending 4 tokens. It would be really surprising if he didn't get anything out of this race, especially looking at the cars. That BAV is still very much the 2nd fastest car on the grid and is decently clear of 3rd and 4th. I mean, that shouldn't be a car that is struggling to get top 6 finishes, spending that many tokens. That's Apley and Andres and Andrian. So, that's your little rundown. The fight over 4th continues. It's Sobel versus Rito. Currently, it's the BFX teammates, and Suicide is looking to just slightly make their day worse if you can get a couple of positions off overtaking maneuvers here. Looking at tyres, Suicide is on the mediums, Rito is on the softs. The softs are fresher, but Suicide has the French home crowd willing him on and through the first sector, down that mini straight after turn 1. He gets the position, but he won't keep it. Rito comes back at him through the hairpin. Suicide might try it down the back straight. Rito might have his line impeded slightly by Fox. He does. Sue is right on the back of him. Rito uses boost to very little avail, but does get away from Sue just in the end then. Sue going down through the sweepers will just have to bide his time and wait for an overtake. Sobel still in 4th place currently. He'll be in the next few laps. Urist is in already. Will he get a BFX crowd coming at him? Yes, he will. He's right sandwiched in between them. He would have just wanted to have a second more so he didn't get caught up in this pack, because he is fighting for that race win, of course. But Rito, who's on softs that are still in pretty good condition but a few laps older, might just stand an outside chance still. As it stands, we're only halfway through this Grand Prix as Grandy crosses the line to cement it, so anything could still happen. Goose is trusting the hards, as is Sobel. Rito and Urist are confident in their softs. There might have been a collision in that final corner, because that was a slow-moving a slow-moving Urist down that pit straight. Sobel looking to make an overtaking maneuver. It is really cool to see the BFXs both spending 2 tokens and both really flexing their muscles once again in a very fast car. Just like they did back in Season 2. Grandy with a very comfortable lead currently and shouldn't be in for the next couple of laps. Goose still in 2nd, then it's Rito and Urist, Sobel and Suicide all catching. Ikoloski, then Amazing, Andrews a bit behind him, and Kubo into the pit lane. Might just be looking to get a sneaky point here, but Andrian could actually get Fuerza Roja's first point of the season. He's in 11th position at the moment as Pit Crew just blasted through into 10th. He's a lap down on Rito. No battling happening quite yet in that top 7 pack. It would be really interesting to see him tokenless get their first points of the season. That would just show the huge steps that team has made in trying to get back into competitive running. Then in 13th place we've got Pappy, in 14th Jaruni, and 15th is Fox, who is spending 2 tokens today. Andrew is spending none. Fox is in a better car, and Fox is 10 seconds behind him. Don't try and ask me to explain that one to you, because I won't be able to. Menica in 16th, disappointing so far for the Porsche driver. Then it's 17th for Abver, currently 18th for Anti, 19th for Cado, and there's a P20 for Vladinator. But looking back at the fight, for 5th position, it is Suicide, being very closely followed by Ikoloski, who might just start to come back into it, but he is on pretty worn mediums. Grandy is into the pit lane. Meanwhile, Goose will come through and take the lead of the races. Grandy exits the pit lane and does take medium compound tyres. We've not had any sniff of rain just yet, and sniffing Grandy's arse is Rito there. Just looks to try and get an overtaking manoeuvre done. Grandy sticks to the outside. Rito, despite being on the soft compound tyre, it's much older, so he's not experiencing a great amount of grip there, and Grandy might just switch back him coming on the exit of the chicane. No, it goes to the outside through scene and boosts through the corner. That's a great overtake from the Finn. Once again, he's managed it. That's really great to see. That's so cool. Rito is finally in. He's decided to give that one up. Urist goes through into 3rd position. He's on softs that will do him a few more laps. Still, Rito takes the hards. Ikoloski takes the mediums. It is still anyone's race. Oh, we see Pappy get a penalty for pushing off Sobel there, funnily enough. But I think Sobel was still held up there. Ikoloski and Suicide coming in now, and Andres not spending any tokens, so we need not worry that much about him. Amazing will be very sad to have fallen down to 9th place, but he is on the hards. He's just going to play the long game for the time being. Meanwhile, Goose is leading. Grandy has already caught him pretty much and will definitely overtake him coming on to lap 28 because he is on much fresher medium compound tyres, stopped a couple laps ago, and the man who was in second place behind him before he came into the pit lane is in second place behind him after he came out of the pit lane. Grandy, on 2 tokens, is looking very, very good in that Thunder X car to potentially win the French Grand Prix and take a lot more points for them. The Thunder X team have not really seen success since the first half of Season 1. They won the first 2 Sunday League virtual races ever back to back. But it just... Well, we see Goose coming in now, and Jurist will be in behind him. That's interesting. What's 4th place going to do? Rito should stay out on those hards, as will Sober on his slightly older hards, and EK is going to look to catch them on his softs. Go back to Grandy. No, let's have a look at Goose, actually, as Rito starts to chase him down. Eurus won't be too far behind these two. Yeah, no, he's got Sobel on his tail, so Sobel looking for a move on Eurus. Then we've got Goose being overtaken by Rito, moves himself up into 2nd position. That is a very nice overtake into the chicane, pretty textbook from the Polish driver. What can Sobel do? Can he emulate his teammate's success through scene? Eurus just doesn't provide much of a battle there. BFX is looking strong on those hard compound tyres, not too much wear. It will be the rain that will probably decide this race in the end because they're all looking so nip and tuck at the moment. Rito puts in a PB lap on the hards that is just 1/10 of a second off the fastest lap of the race set by Suicide, who is currently running in 7th position. Then the fight over 4th is still raging on. Looks like Eurus might get a chance back at Sobel. He's going to have to just wait for it. By this time, Sobel's got boost, Eurus has got less, so he won't have that same advantage. EK might just surprise him coming down into the sweeper. That's a really nice overtake there because he just switched to the inside on the exit of C at the very last moment. He will get himself up into 5th place. We thought that this was going to be a really bad race for him, but it's a string of soft and medium tyre stints that has just been able to mean that he's more recently gotten himself back up into competitive running. It's great to see that happen. Meanwhile, Rito still leads ahead of Goose. They are lapping Anti, who was the last man to be leading the French Grand Prix by 7 seconds before something inexplicably awful happened to him that meant he didn't win the race. But Grandy is currently in that position, and Rito and Goose behind. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to see that. I sort of lost my train of thought from earlier, but I'm sure it was something interesting. Yeah, it should be an interesting title fight this season for sure, because there's not been too much dominance. The Thunder X team, that's what I was talking about. Thunder X team won the first 2 races back to back, of course. As we see, Sobel just chasing down EK at the moment. Sobel is on those hards. They're medium worn. EK's softs are just starting to go off. EK should have more pace at the moment, to be honest. I'm not really sure why he's losing time. Andrews is into the pit lane. They did really well in the first half of Season 1. And they held the championship lead for a long time after Grandy's victories back-to-back in Buenos Aires and Brest, 2 tracks that are now off the Ultimate Virtual calendar, funnily enough. Grandy won very, very marginally in Brest, just over, well, as he was then, somehow I made it, now known as Vladinator, who is still never to have won a Sunday League virtual race. EK looks for a move on Eurus there. Oh, just takes a bit of runoff. On the exit of the chicane through scene, Eurus can't defend much with the inside there. He just has to hit the brakes and let EK swoop round on the racing line. Advert looks to have taken Andrews off. That's not great for him. Fox, his teammate, still in 12th place. And EK now into the pit lane. Thunder X have not had a lot of success since then. They did very, very well in Singapore last season. That was very notable. Grandy in the final corner of the Grand Prix took the win, and Pit Crew, who let him by on that last lap so he could chase after Sobel in one of the all-time grandstand finishes in Sunday League Virtual. They did great in that race, and that propelled them up into some pretty competitive running towards the end of last season. Grandy is now into the pit lane, and I'd love to, just to spice this one up a little bit, have some rain right after he comes into pit. They did great there, but they've not, in terms of Constructors' Championship standings, had that much fruition recently. They struggled for podiums. I believe that, I think it was Jamosh or something like that, but definitely towards the end of last season was Thunder X's first podium in a very long time. And they obviously managed that win in Singapore, but they've not had much top steps to success. Definitely only 3 wins as a team, and they're looking really good for a 4th win. But the cloud cover, as we go onto the final 9 laps of the French Grand Prix, is just starting to come over. Grandy did get past Goose there. That was the overtake for 2nd position. Goose is on much older medium compound tyres, so that one looked pretty textbook. This is it. This is the fight for the lead of the Grand Prix. Grandy on the fresh mediums, Rito on the old hards. Grandy tries to move down the inside of Scene, can't manage it there, but he does get him on the exit. He darted last minute to try and get that overtake done. And that looked pretty ballsy, because Rito's being held up by some back markers. Rito and Goose now into the lane. It's going to be Eurus who comes through, takes second place, and the rain is coming, so they'll both have to immediately come onto the wet weather tyres. That might not be the most harmful thing to happen to them, funnily enough, because the weather marker's going to move pretty quickly. Grandy, I think, will still have the upper hand, but it's the fact that they didn't get onto those slicks before the rain started coming is the crucial part. The rain is now here. They did have to make their way through the first sector with a bit of tricky conditions on wets on a dry track, but now Rito is going to make his way past Eurus, and Eurus was due to come in anyways, but ideally would have come in a lot earlier. Okay, so now the clouds are coming back. Will this be an intermediate stop for Grandy? No, he takes the wets. What will Eurus do? He nearly drags Goose into the lane, but the rain is leaving, so surely you go inters or slicks. He does! He goes inters! And the rain is leaving, the track is drying, and we've no longer got any active rain. This is Eurus' big chance to gain back up. The undercut, by the way, on the wet tyre looks to have worked, because Rito, who was more than a second behind Grandy by the time that Grandy had passed him and Rito had come into the pit lane, just got that rain announcement just in time to not have switched to a slick compound of tyre. And now it's not that far behind Grandy, and what was looking like a pretty comfortable win, it will now have Thunder X biting the fingernails of all of the crew members, ideally biting their own fingernails, otherwise that would be really bizarre. Andries is the first driver in to the pits for soft compound tyres. You might have even reckoned that Eurus probably should have just come in for some slicks, but Rito is coming for the lead of the French Grand Prix. Will he be able to wrestle it off the Finn, who has looked so good all race long? We have just 5 laps to go, 4 laps to go, as they come through into the pit lane to start lap 40 of 44, and it's so nip and tuck on the exit. So tight between them, and it's going to be so tight in the final few laps of the race. This is a soft tyre sprint to the end, same tokens, different cars. This is Thunder X versus BFX, the battle of the X teams, just as it was in Singapore, and just as it was there. Rito looks to have the upper hand. Grandy will need a late spur just to charge himself back past. It's all even, same tyres, same life, same token spent. This is crucial. Actually, Grandy is spending a token more, but this is really, really vital. This is really, really vital. He might have to just wait and just wait and just wait. Will he boost down this straight? No, it doesn't look like he will. How much boost does Rito have in the tank? Just a tap more than Grandy does, I believe. And we'll have to just wait for the attack to come, because Grandy will no doubt be looking and will be furious if he doesn't win this Grand Prix. He was looking so composed out in the lead, and Rito just starting to boost away. Grandy uses a bit of his own in response, boost through turn 1, through turn 2, through the short straight. Now, this is all about the exit. Grandy doesn't keep it that close to the inside curb, but he's only 9/10 of a second behind. The W-Techs take each other off, and Rito gets massively slowed down by Fox, the 2-token spender, who's only managing 12th place so far. Grandy gets through an Adver, and he's now right up to the back of Rito. He's going to try and use Fox as an overtaking manoeuvre, and he just gets a very shallow entry into the final corner, so that has paid itself back. But Grandy, no doubt, has gained 10th through that, has the momentum, might go for the overtaking manoeuvre into the hairpin. Down the back straight, the penultimate lap of the race is going to the outside, and the chicane, and by the time they arrive at the chicane, Grandy, just as it was in Singapore last season, in the dying embers of the race, is going to retake the lead of the French Grand Prix. This is incredible stuff. Rito has one final lap to see what he can do about it. He has the faster car. He has the fastest car on the grid, and he needs to put it to use here. Grandy still leads. It's only a few tenths. Rito behind, coming onto the back straight, will look to get a really, really good run at Grandy. If not into the chicane, then into Scene, then into the sweepers. Somewhere he needs to get that overtake done. Grandy still in the lead. Just a few corners to go. Rito right on his tail. It might come down to the exit of the final corner. Grandy wide, but Rito wider. And Grandy wins the French Grand Prix. Rito takes second place. It's going to be Goose who takes third on the podium. EK recovered to fourth in the end. And Jurist will take just fifth position for him. Suicide will take sixth place in his home race for Papi Pops Racing. That puts them on 22 points for the season so far. And Sobel didn't have the same luck as his teammate. He will finish in just 7th place. Amazing will be maybe disappointed to only take 8th come the end of the race. But looking at the final results, on the top step of the podium by just a few tenths of a second, Grandy for Thunder X wins at the Circuit Paul Ricard. Rito takes second place. It's going to be Goose in 30. Koloski takes fourth, ahead of Jurist in 5th. Then it's going to be Suicide taking 6th position with the fastest lap of the race. So scratch that. 23 points this season for Papi Pops Racing. 23 points in just the last 2 races. And that is all for Suicide as well, because he has spent 3, then 4 tokens, consecutive races, sort of double home race appearing at least, because Monaco and Paul Ricard very close to each other, very close to home for him. Sobel takes 7th. Amazing will be pretty much a lap down on him in 8th. And it's going to be 9th for Andres and for his close namesake. And for Fuerza Roja for the very first time this season, the first time since Interlagos last season, they do take a point. And this is without any tokens. The first time in a race where people have been able to spend tokens that Fuerza Roja have gotten points without them. And that is incredible to see. Pit Crew takes 11th place for Thunder X. It's 1 and 1-1 in positions for them. Fox with 2 tokens will not take any points for the WTEC team. You have to wonder what went wrong today, because that is a dismal performance. 13th for Kubo, Team Velocity. 14th for Papi. That's 15th for Hetmanica, who's on the podium here last season. Anti, 17th place, who led the race last season, won the sprint, of course, and Jaruni splits them. Then it was Abva in 18th place, Vladinator 19th, and Home Hero Kado, unfortunately, will take last at home. Well, it was an exciting race. It was a slow burner. There was a lot of action at the start, and then a lot of different competitors just trading tyre strategy and whatnot in the mid part of the race, but everyone out front looking very convincing. To try and get some really strong points and some strong positions. A very competitive race overall, and with a grandstand finish. I really hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly did. We'll see you next time. It's going to be the Sprint and Grand Prix at the Estoril Circuit in Portugal. But until then, bye-bye.